Good morning, Dragons. I'm Mr. Salerno, and this is Flame, and we want to welcome you to the news of Camelot. Today's Thursday, June 4th, 2020, and Flame, it's going to be hot again outside in the 90s, high of 91 degrees, but there might be a thunderstorm later today, and there might be some lightning, so be careful. 14 hours, 46 minutes that the sun will be up, but nevertheless, very hot. And if you were out yesterday, Dragons, you might have felt really hot, and even after about 10 minutes, you got a little sweaty. That's even without running around, right? Because it was so much hotter than it was the day before. And that got us to thinking, where do we get ice from? Right? And that might be kind of a confusing question because, it's so hot. Where do we get ice? Well, ice obviously cools us down. We put it in our drinks. We might have it in a cooler if we wanted to keep something fresh. But ice is very fascinating because it's a phase of matter that is a solid, right? But water can take on all three phases. It can take on a gas in the form of steam and condensation. It can take on the form of a liquid, which is water, and then a solid as ice, right? So check this out, Dragons. We got some ice here. We put some ice in this jar. And if I were to just take my hand, right? Take my hand and just do this little demonstration. I'm going to take this ice. I'm just going to hold it. Just like this, Flame. You want to do it too? Here. Flame's going to take a piece of ice. And what happens? Right? If I were to do an observation just after about 10 seconds, look at my hand. Right? It's all wet. And why is it wet? Well, it's wet because my hand is so much warmer than the solid form of ice. So you have to have 32 degrees Fahrenheit or colder to make the hydrogen particles, the hydrogen molecules in ice, come closer together. That's what makes it a solid. You might have heard of the term H2O. That might be a common term, right? So H2O means there are two hydrogens and one oxygen. That's what makes water. H2, two hydrogens, one part oxygen, right? But what happens when you get ice is the hydrogen bonds very close together and forms crystals. And those crystals in the ice, right, those crystals in the ice, you can see it's a different shade. That whiter part are the crystals are actually very close together. They're bonded closer together, right? So, oh no, it's dripping. So when it starts to separate, it takes on a water form, a liquid form. Right? So right now, we have all this ice. Now check this out. Flame, I'm going to borrow your ice cube because I can see that your claws are getting wet. So put that in there. I'm going to take this cup of water, okay, and I'm going to pour it in just like this. And let's see if you can notice an observation, Dragons. What happens when I pour the water in? Did you hear that? Was I talking too much? Look at that. So now, in this cup, look how the ice floats. Right? The ice floats because it is less dense as a solid than it is as a liquid. And eventually, if we leave this out, this ice will all turn to water because it combines with a warmer temperature. You might not think that this water is warmer, but it's a lot warmer. And the crystallization here, it starts to separate and turn into liquid. But it's able to float because it's less dense. Ice is less dense in its solid form than it is its liquid form. And I see, Flame, that you had a walrus over there. So let's keep with that theme, Dragons. Flame's friend of the day today we're going to talk about is the walrus. And if you know anything about walruses, there's not a lot of walruses in Northern Virginia. Why is that, you ask? Well, one is because of the traffic, and the other is because it is not cold enough. Walruses live in the Arctic Circle or closer to the northern part of the world, right? Some of them might live on the Pacific side, maybe the Atlantic side, but the walrus is a very fascinating creature. Look at that, Dragons. And walrus have big tusks. They're known for their big tusks. They're known for being big creatures. Some adults get up to about 3,000 pounds. That's crazy, 3,000 pounds of one animal. They're not particularly fast, as you can see, and walruses, since they are in one part of the world, they are threatened. They're a species that's not endangered, and they're not super plentiful because you can only find them in one part of the world. But they are threatened, mainly because they are hunted. and they used to be hunted a lot more. They're making a comeback, but they used to be hunted a lot more because they are so large and they have valuable oils and valuable blubber that help people. So the hunters would go after walruses, right? Not so good. But walruses, dragons, they are fascinating creatures. They are carnivores because they eat lots of fish, eat lots of fishies, and sometimes if they're super hungry, they might eat their own seal cousins. This is the largest, a walrus is the largest seal in the world, right? Now they have these big tusks, probably what they're known for, these tusks. You can see it's labeled there, tusk. But tusks they are their teeth, but they don't necessarily chew. They're not for chewing. The tusks serve two main purposes. One of those purposes is to get out of the water. They spend most of their time on Earth in the water, right? They'll come to land if they have to sleep, but most of their time is spent in the water, swimming and eating in those very cold Arctic waters. So they use their tusks to get out of the water, which I thought was interesting. And the other is for protection if they're going to be hunted, because they're super sharp. They're about 6 inches. So if you can imagine, like this cup is about 5 inches, but it's like hanging out on my, right? That's for protection, okay? They don't use it for chewing. They have some teeth, but they don't use it for chewing. I thought that was pretty cool. And if you look close enough, dragons, you can see that a walrus has whiskers, and their whiskers are kind of like fingers. They kind of use those to sense where the fish are and to look for food. They're not used for warmth. That's what the blubber is, right? Walruses are hunted by two main animals. They're hunted by polar bears, and they're hunted by killer whales, like those big dolphins that look like they have black and white, right? They're the biggest dolphins, the killer whales, but they hunt walruses. But you know what it's like, Flame? I thought this was interesting. Have you ever eaten a tire? Have you ever eaten like a tire off a car, right? You haven't? Wow. Well, it's like if you were to eat a tire, you'd have to try to get through all of that rubber. That's kind of what like eating a walrus is. You have to get through all of that blubber, all of that thick protection to get to the meat part, right? Now walruses, right, they're very social. They come together, they come as herds, but they are very social. They don't move particularly fast, but they're very social. They live up to 40 years. How about that? So they do have their teeth, they do have their tusks, they do have their blubber. They are social creatures, but they are threatened, right? You have to be very careful. So we talked about what hunts them, and we talked that they are carnivores and that they are on the hunt quite a bit. We'll do a little bit of talking about if we remember some of the things with walruses, but just an overall super fascinating creature. I just love this picture because you have the walrus, and then you have the walrus calf right there. If you had a little walrus, it starts forming tusks after 4 months, right? So because it has to protect itself. This mama walrus protects their young just by sitting in front of them. I thought that was kind of neat. So if a polar bear attacks, they are there just because they're so big. If they thought that they would be threatened, they're able to swim in the water, and they stay in those waters that are so cold because of all that blubber, right? So not a day like today. Today is not a good day for a walrus in Northern Virginia, but it's nevertheless a friend of Flame. And as we know, they love tasty fish. We don't have any birthdays today, Flame. We don't have any birthdays, so let's just go right to the mail, see what we have for the mail. Dear Flame, you're not going to believe this. You were talking about Florida and orange juice yesterday at the exact moment I was drinking orange juice. That's incredible. And it says that's incredible. Have a great day. Karina in New Hampshire. We haven't heard from Karina in a while. We have her drawing back there, and she's certainly a friend of Flame also, but not a walrus. So thanks, Karina. Here's to you, and here's to more orange juice. Maybe some ice water if you're having ice water right now. Let's see here. Oh boy, that's fun. Who do you think this is from? I'll give you one guess. That's right. It's Miss Flaherty. So here we go. Hi, dragons. I saw quite a contrast on my walk yesterday. Right in front of me, I saw 2 squirrels chase each other up a tree. About 5 minutes later, I saw 2 chipmunks chase each other down a hole in the ground. That's incredible. So up a tree and down in the ground. That got me thinking, would I rather climb up a tree or dig and scurry down a hole? How about you? What would you do if you could only choose one? Well, that's an interesting letter from Miss Flaherty. Stay safe. Love, Miss Flaherty. Wow. Okay, so let's discuss, Flame. So, would you rather chase someone up a tree, right, and try to hide up at the top of the tree, or would you rather chase someone or chase something and go down a hole? What a great question. I guess I've never thought of it before, but think about it, dragons. And if you have an answer of which would you rather do, would you rather scooty scoot up the tree, or would you rather go down into the hole? Write Miss Flaherty, let her know. Or you could write me, or you could write Camelot. We'd love to hear what you would do. I guess I don't. You say you would fly up a tree. You would try to climb up the tree. I guess it's easier for your wings. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I might go down in the hole. I don't know. Especially if I dug it. I'd feel like that, like I accomplished something. Like I did the digging. So I want to use that. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad we're on different pages there. So what else do we have? Trivia time, dragons. Trivia time. So our good friend here, right? Our very social friend, Walrus over there. Let's see if we have some trivia for our walrus. It's here somewhere. See if we remember some of the things that we were talking about, Flame. Okay? So, walruses. Are they herbivores? Are they carnivores? Or are they omnivores? That's right, they are carnivores. And one of the biggest reasons they're carnivores is there's not a lot of vegetables or plants or fruits that are in the Arctic or in the colder parts of the world, right? So they have to rely on those meat creatures. They are carnivores. Good job, Flame. So what else do we have? All right, walruses. Are they predators? Are they prey? Or are they both? Are they predators, prey, or both? They are both, right? Watch out for those killer whales and watch out for those polar bears, but they are both. They usually are on the hunt for tasty fish. Very good. All right, so walrus populations. The population of walruses. Are we least concerned about the walrus population becoming extinct? Are they threatened to become extinct? Are they endangered to become extinct? What say you, Flame? Yeah, they are threatened. They are threatened, but they are not endangered yet. We got to make sure that they stay safe, but they are very big. They do protect each other by being so close together, and they are very thick, as we talked about. Okay, so which of these do walruses not have? What does a walrus not have? A walrus doesn't have teeth. A walrus doesn't have claws. A walrus doesn't have a tail. You know, we really didn't discuss this too much, so there's a small inference here. But yes, walruses do not have claws. We talked about how their tusks protect them, and we talked about them swimming. And if you are a swimmer, you have to have a tail to help you move back and forth. So you've made a great inference there, Flame. Very good. All right. What keeps a walrus warm? What keeps a walrus warm? Does blubber keep a walrus warm? Does fur keep a walrus warm? Do whiskers keep a walrus warm? That's right, blubber. Blubber keeps a walrus warm. That's hard to say. I'm glad I got that right. Whiskers keep a walrus warm, right? But blubber is what keeps a walrus warm. Whiskers help it find food, and fur, that's hilarious. No fur there. All right, so what do walrus tusks, what do walrus tusks not do? So walrus have their big tusks. What are they not used for? What do we not see in those tusks labeled tusk? Okay, we don't use walrus tusks for getting out of the water. We don't use walrus tusks for protection. We don't use walrus tusks for chewing. Oh, Flame, you were so close to getting a perfect score, but that's okay. You want to try again? Okay, good. Yeah, we don't use the tusks for chewing. They do have teeth for chewing, and they have a lot of pressure in their mouth for kind of compacting the food, but they do not use their tusks for chewing. They use them to get out of the water, to grab onto the ice and get out of the water, or they use it for protection if especially a polar bear comes after them. So not bad, Flame. And just an overall, we love the walrus. I thought this was kind of interesting in this book. It's one of our Eric Carle books, right? So Flame had this page out. There's a walrus, right? What do you hear? But look at the cover. Ah, it's a polar bear. Gotta be careful, our poor buddy. So, on behalf of Flame, I'm Mr. Salerno. We hope you stay cool, maybe do a little demonstration. Let us know if you'd like to climb up a tree or go down a hole, and we can't wait to see you tomorrow. Thanks, Dragons.